Thank you, Brian, again for
Hey,
sharing.
thanks for, oh yeah. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, on a Friday night with us and watching this.
Yeah. So first, like I said, thank you for sharing your life story with us and the world. I mean, it's important to have the vulnerability and the bravery to expose yourself in its truest form, and I appreciate that. So let's talk about, first of all, this is the second play you wrote about being adopted. And why don't you kind of go through the genesis of this play and also your other play and how this all got formed?
Yeah, I know the Mammoth Faithful probably saw me perform Blank, which I wrote back in 2000, wrote and premiered back in 2010, and I've kind of been performing that over the past 10 years. And that was really a journey in search of identity, and it really showed how my birth mother, how the knowledge of my birth mother came to me, and which led to the doorstep of my birth mother. And I've always just had, I've always explored identity, you know, and who we are. And I think all art does that, as well as religion and philosophy and just so many things, right? And that's what Blank really was. And this was, At Ghost Kingdom was more of a magnifying glass to the search and the search itself. And it really just explored the ups and downs of that. And Shira, that came from a relationship that I had online with a woman who I thought was my sister, and that is the Keeley's character, the Keeley character. We had a great relationship. She embraced me with open arms, even with the extreme situation there. We just developed a great relationship for almost 2 years. And then, you know, it came not to be that, you know, we weren't siblings. And we closed our computers at night, and we have yet to speak since, you know. And so a few years after that, I was like, what was that all about? You know, what is that? And that led me to just kind of explore what we adoptees, and really anyone. So, I mean, it could be somebody searching for their father who was raised by their mother. Just when someone goes on a search for a biological relative, I really just kind of wanted to take a deep dive and explore that.
And you've always known that you were adopted, or was there a day?
Yes, I saw that. Kara, hi, Kara. You're an LDA, a late discovery adoptee. I have always known. In fact, I don't even remember a time when my parents told me. So my adoptive parents told me. So I have always known, thankfully. And a car like you, I know a lot of LDAs out there, and that's a tough, it's a tough discovery when you're later in life.
Yeah. I'm the same. I was talking to my godmother the other day, and she always thought it was so strange because my father would be holding me as an infant, and he'd be saying, "Oh, we were so lucky to have adopted you." And
oh my gosh,
so lucky but I don't ever remember not knowing. I don't ever remember them explaining it to me.
Right.
It's something that was just my reality. And I actually think that's the best, because when we've talked about this, lies and secrets destroy lives. And my own birth mother never told anybody that she had a baby and gave it up for adoption. So in turn, she has this baggage of a lie that she's been keeping her whole life, this monkey on her back, and you know how that it affects so many people. How was it? So you created this, you were intending to do it on stage. Were there any adjustments, or is everything that was on the page on the screen, or?
It's very similar. No, but there were big adjustments. I mean, just to make it more camera friendly, because the theatrical version, it was very physical, you know, with a lot of technology on stage where I'd kind of bounce around. I don't want to say dance, but, you know, I was very physical, bouncing around from person to person, you know. So I had to definitely adjust it to make it camera friendly. However, which is very obvious when you guys watched it, I'm sure, I kept the theatricality of the piece. The monologues are all intact. And I wanted all the words there. And yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, all the characters are really, I think, fully developed, and they're very succinct and specific to their own people. Did you just kind of play around with that, or how did?
Well, it's funny because I don't see it as I was actually playing them as characters. I see it as Braden fantasizing about them in the Ghost Kingdom. You know what I mean? So it was, so you would, when Keeley was introduced at the mirror, and the mirror is obviously a big thing in adoption, the self-reflection and all that. But Braden plays around like, how does she sound? Or, she has crooked lips. So, does she do this? And so I wanted to be more fantasy. And then by the time you're at the end with Max, that's like the ultimate fantasy, the fantasy of the father, and what is that character? And so that's where I really kind of dove in as an actor rather than playing around, where I kind of committed to this scary fantasy of who my father is in prison right now. Right.
Right. And the stuff you had on the blackboard, there was a question about that. Was there anything that was your favorite saying, or where do those stem from? You want to kind of talk about that?
Oh, these are just quotes that I came across reading, and I put it on the blackboard. Yeah, Cara, I see you, Cara. Yeah, okay. So Akara asks, things you wrote on the blackboard, do you have a favorite line? I couldn't pause the film, but I saw something about a black raincoat around the soul. That is specifically from Robert Bly, who wrote the book Iron John, which is the myth of Iron John, kind of this masculine thing. But I'm going to kill the quote right now, but Akara, I'll get a hold, or message me on Facebook or something, and I'll give you the direct quote. But it's something like, my father's sperm, who that is wrapped around me like a black raincoat around my soul, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I had quotes there, and most of them were about search and discovery and father. And you saw the map. Now, if any of you were really paying attention in the first act of Messages to the Ghost Kingdom, that spans over like 8-9 years, right? And you could see that Max wasn't my father at the very beginning, because it's crossed out when I'm talking with Travis and stuff like that. So that jumps time. Yeah. So, but we also, it's also a convention, right? Because it's so confusing when we adoptees try to tell our stories, and all the names that go into it, and all the people and the possible relatives. And the blackboard was also used as a convention to help the audience out just a little bit more on who these people are and who I'm talking about. Yeah. But there's also in the background, I'll go off that share real quick. Sorry. As the time progressed, I think I had a shirt that said 2017 that's later. I had books in the background, and I had like the Royals won the World Series in 2015, so you knew it would be after 2015, and the Chiefs at the very end, so you knew that was around 2019. So there were just hints of moving forward in the future, and then of course the visible, the actual lines about Mitt Romney and Obama's run. So you knew that was in 2012, 2011, 12. So there were little hints like that to kind of keep the timeline there. But yeah, there's a lot of little Easter eggs in the background.
Yeah. Somebody actually asked, what was the unfolding of the fingers about with Max, the father Max?
They cut off his fingers, so he was missing 2 fingers. He was a drug trafficker. Oh, because it was Braden becoming him. So if you noticed, I was in Braden's costume, and then once I folded the fingers in, as if those 2 fingers were missing, the costume magically changes to a to scrubs, to
right.
Prison scrubs,
right?
So the unfolding was the opposite. It went from, you'll notice the scrubs disappeared back into Braden's costume, and he's Braden again, coming out of his fantasy.
Right, right. I mean, I think that's what's interesting about your pieces, both pieces, and that's why I would also love to see this on stage, because somebody just said that. I feel that you create these seamless transitions from going from yourself into the characters. And it's interesting to see how you create that visually, cinematically, or whatever, that you can't do on stage, that you have to do within a screen. And so that's always really interesting to me. I always find you're so creative that way.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot more tricky on screen.
Yeah, yeah. I guess Claire Roy is asking, how would that timeline translate to theater, noticing the distraction between the film's costume change to how theater and costume changes?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would have been done physically, and theater's a lot more physical. So I would have had. I haven't gotten that far, Claire. I don't know, because theater's closed.
So you weren't
So
the play
that's a
wasn't
tough one.
complete. The play was not completed when you
Right. The script was complete, but the staging was not complete, even though we had ideas. So
Right.
that would have been something that we would really have to
Yeah.
explore. So that's a good question.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I guess it's really hard to explain the feelings that you have when you're doing this search, and when you have the excitement of this possibility. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. Uh, you know, because I've gone through the same thing. When you when
Yeah.
you find somebody that is possibly related to you at this high level, there's all these emotions that are happening, and it's kind of beyond like just finding your family. I mean, there's this, I feel like when you're growing up adopted, there's something really innately empty within yourself, and you can't, yes, it's like you don't know where you come from. You don't, there's so many issues that come along with being adopted, and it's a very strong and primal feeling. I almost feel like.
Very primal. I mean, that's the best word for it, because when we were relinquished, whatever feelings or trauma that came about, we had no language to put words to how we were feeling at that time. So when this happens, it's almost like we go back and we feel these feelings that we haven't experienced since when we were relinquished, and it's coming up, and it's like, what is this? I can't even describe this. I can't put words to it. It's primal. Exactly what you said. And it's everything, right? I mean, it's like, wow, joy, oh God, fear, and and just anxiety and excitement, and I mean, I'm trying to put words to it, but you can't. It's just everything that is there.
Right.
It's coming out from the very first moment of when you came into existence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I don't think there's been any scientific, I don't know, maybe I don't know if there's been any scientific studies about that, because I think, when we're probably born, people thought, oh, there's no way an infant can know what's happening around them. And, most infants are taken away right when they're born. They're not given the opportunity to bond, or sometimes they are, and then they're taken away. And,
Right.
and then they're put into a couple foster cares, and then they usually go home within a month or two, or, sometimes longer. But I do think that, like we were just saying, there's something in our subconscious that is lingering about that experience. And, no matter how great my parents were and your
Yeah,
adopted
sure.
family is, it has nothing to do with that. It
Right.
has to do with something that is in your physical makeup that you cannot deny.
Yeah,
And it's such a weird experience that nobody can really relate to unless you've experienced it.
no, it's in our very selves. I mean, it's you raise so many points here, and I'll just unpack a couple things. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because society these days are saying, when you're pregnant, it's good to sing to the baby while they're in the womb, and it's good to do this and do that and play music and do, you know, and it's so important for the baby to go right into the mother's arms right away. I mean, you see this and read about it and experience. I experienced it with my wife, you know, but then all of a sudden it's okay to just pull the baby away and they don't feel anything and they don't remember it, like that. It's like one or the other, right? So none of that makes sense. And yes, it is in our very being, you know, and every adoptee has their own experience, and whether they have the desire to search or not, you know, that's their thing. I have always had the desire to search ever since I can remember. I knew that I would someday meet my mother. I just knew it. And you're right, Shira. I want to make this clear. It has nothing to do with how I was raised by my adoptive family. I love my adoptive family. I consider myself very fortunate. I've got my brother and sister, my best friends. I mean, like, I have a good life, but I still felt I needed this. Yeah. You know, to find the truth at the very least, just know the knowledge. I mean, a lot of adoptees just want to know. They don't necessarily maybe want to meet personally, you know, it's everybody has their own thing, but just the knowledge of the truth. That's it.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting also with the finding the need, you know, sometimes like for me, I had the need to find my birth mother when I was in my 20s. I had this unexplainable feeling when I was about 19 or 20, but I didn't have a need to find my birth father. And really just this past year, I found the need to find my birth father. And what's interesting about that is if I would have tried to find my birth father a long time ago, I would have never found him, because she never used his name on any of the birth certificates. There was only 5 people on earth that knew I existed. She told them she had an abortion. And so when I did the search to this past year, I was able to find my birth father's side of the family. But if it wasn't for DNA, I would have never been able to find him. So DNA is really changing the world with adoptees and accidents and
without a doubt. And that's, you know, and that's how I end the piece of joining those joining Ancestry and 23andMe. And you're right, it's changing the world.
It's changing the world.
I'm
it's
sorry.
Mind-blowing. No, it's mind-blowing. It's
it is.
Somebody's asking, how long did it take to film this? So how long, what process, you know, because you know, after 5 o'clock shadow and a little bit of scruff and clean shaven.
Yeah, right.
Well, and your hair, actually, your hair looks 2 different lengths also.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I know. I mean, obviously I grew the beard first and filmed that and then just shaved. So what we did, it was about 2 months. I'm looking at my wife now, because it was just she and I. So we could only do it on the weekends, although we did film in the graveyard on a Tuesday. But we filmed on the weekends, every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, for almost 2 months. However, my mom passed, my adoptive mother passed in the middle of it, right when we were almost finishing. So that took away a little bit of time. That happened in the middle of it. But overall, it was like a full 2 months of weekends. So maybe 6-7 weekends.
So a month and a half. Also, for people who haven't seen Blank, can you talk a little bit about finding your birth mother?
Oh, yeah. So I was born in the state of Missouri, and at that time I was not allowed to have my birth certificate, my original birth certificate, which there are still states out there, California being one of them, which do not allow adoptees to have their original birth certificates, which is terrible. But my mother, my adoptive mother, she knew someone in Catholic Charities. I was adopted through Catholic Charities. And that woman got a hold of my original birth certificate, made a copy of it, and gave it to my mother. And so my mother, when I was 23, I don't know why she waited that long, but she did, gave me my original birth certificate, and my birth mother's name was on that. And that was the beginning. We sought her out, and her name was just, there were things back then called phone books. the white pages. And her name was right there with her husband in the white pages. And my adoptive mother called and just said, my son would like to get in touch with you, and why don't you write him a letter? And my birth mother wrote me a letter, and we communicated from then on. She did tell me at that time that I was a product of a gang rape at a high school party. And you saw the possible men in the movie. But yeah, I still have a relationship with her today. And I was just texting her over Thanksgiving. And yeah, I invited her to my wedding. She was at our wedding, Brenda and I's wedding. So yeah, I that was, you guys, that was 23 years ago.
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s.
I want to bring something else up before I ask the other question about the ongoing about search for your birth father. What's always interesting is my mother, when I decided to do the search for my birth mother, she found I didn't tell her about it. My mother wasn't as progressive as yours. And I think for a lot of adoptees, especially if you have really great adoptive parents, there's a lot of guilt, I think, at least there was for me, about wanting to find my birth mother. And even when my mom found out, she found some paperwork in my bedroom, and she confronted me about it, and she started crying and saying, "No, I thought there would be a day that you wanted to find your real parents." And I tried to explain to her it's not about that. But it's interesting, because I do think with adoptive parents, there's a holding back when you first of all, you take on a child that you are unconditionally going to love no matter what, which is so brave and honorable, because I was always taught anybody can get pregnant. It takes a special person to be a mother or a father. And I really believe that. It's the person who gets up every night in the middle of the night to change your diapers and makes, drop everything to take you to your friend's house when you're 13 or whatever. But there's definitely, there was like a scary, I'm letting them down type of thing when I wanted to do my search, and that really weighed heavy on me. Did you have any feelings like that?
Oh yeah, no, there's big guilt, major guilt that we carry, and it's unnecessary guilt. Everybody, I want to put that out there. We don't need to feel guilty at all. It's not like in the movie, it's our right. My adoptive mother was very proactive in me getting to know her, or meeting her. But then when it looked like we were going to have a relationship beyond just getting medical history, she became extremely defensive. And it was really, really difficult. So she kind of turned. She did a 180-degree turn. And there was a point where I just found the bravery, and I attribute that to some adoption support groups that I had gotten involved with and talking with people. I found the bravery to call my adoptive mom, and I told her, I said, "Mom, I'm not going to walk on eggshells anymore around the subject of my birth mom. I want a relationship with her. I want my kids to have a relationship with her. And you have to accept that. And I need your acceptance because you're my parent. And this is when I need you most. I'm not trying to replace you. I'm not trying to do any of this. I need you now as a parent. And it's your choice. But no matter what, I'm going to pursue and stay in this relationship with my birth mother." And that opened up the floodgates. The fact that she started crying. She's like, of course I support you, and it led to a really good conversation. People get very touchy around this, and it's like, man, we just want the truth. Because when you keep it a secret, or when when we have these guilty feelings, we constantly think that something is wrong with us, right? There's something shameful. If there's a secret about me, I must be the shame. I'm the source of the shame.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be about the kids. The whole adoption thing is supposed to be about the kids, right? But it's not. A lot of the times it's not. and we need to find a way to get it back to be about us, about the adopted child.
Well,
And yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it, and I think transparency is the best. That's where we need to begin.
Well, I also think that, you know, especially back in the day before Roe versus Wade, and when adoptions were at the height, I believe they were at the height then. I don't know if they still are, but you know, it just kind of came with, okay, here you go, now you're off, you know, and they just give you a kid.
Right.
There wasn't any, you know, any kind of therapy or guidelines or
Education.
yeah, any education or you
Right.
know, any
Yep.
information about what to expect and how to handle this. And because there's so many things that go down that you're going to have to figure out. And I mean, for adoptive kids and also the parents and then birth parents, I mean, I'm sure birth parents have, you know, a whole slew of issues that they're dealing with. And so I think that that people don't even realize that there's so much more that we need to take care of within the adoption process.
Yeah, no, a lot of education needs to be done, and you know, there are a lot of voices out there,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
are and need to be listened to.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the ongoing search for your birth father?
Sure, we can move on to that, everybody. So I found my father. I'll just come right out and say it.
Okay.
It was through 3 platforms. I was able to put names together, mixed with Ancestry, 23andMe, and My Heritage. I got to make this brief. I don't have a chalkboard behind me to keep things straight. So I'll keep it brief and not as confusing. So I found a woman who was connected to Kansas City. All these names started popping up, and one of those women was connected to Kansas City. And so I kind of corroborated information with DNA Angel. We call them DNA Angels, DNA Angel on Ancestry. I said, who are these people? And they said, oh, they're my cousins. That's how we're related. So this one woman is from Kansas City. You need to look there and we'll find out how we're related. And so this woman had 3 daughters and a son. And I sent them all Facebook messages. And the son also had an email connected to him. And I sent him an email. I sent them all in. Hi, my name is Brian Stanton. I mean, you saw the movie, all the wording. And the son actually responded the very next morning saying that, you know, I know how important, you know, the presence of a father is in someone's life, is even just the knowledge of a father in someone's life. I'm happy to help you out. Just how about we start with your birth mother's name and we'll just go from there. So I responded, I said, my mother's name is this. She went to this high school. I was conceived late April, early May of 1974. I was born in February 1975. There it is. And he responded, he said, I knew your mother. I went to high school with her. We went on a double date in late April, early May of 1974. And I'm more than happy to take a test with you. And I fell out of my chair. I was like, oh my gosh, this is him. This is him. It's got to be him. And did the test, 99.9999999%. This man is my father. So I found him, and he has nothing to do with the rape incident. I think it happened very, very shortly after. And a big surprise to my mother and I, and a warm and welcome surprise. He's actually been very active in my life, and he texts my daughters all the time. I have a half sister and half brother through him, and I went to both of their weddings. They got married within 4 months of each other this past summer. so it's been really great. And Shira, I don't know if you know this or not, but he's on this call right now. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
his
Welcome.
name is Rick. So I'll wave to Rick, and yeah. So, it's you just search for the truth. You keep going, and we thought it was an ugly truth at first, but it didn't matter. The truth is the truth. We can put any adjective we want with it, but it just is. And I felt that I needed to put a face to the monster fantasy in my head, and go through the search. And it turns out being this guy named Rick. So, you just never know. And I will also say that, even if it was the man in prison, I mean, it's great. It's a great relief to know, and to just, move on from there. And it's been a wild roller coaster of a journey, and that part has ended. And now it's the journey of Rick and I creating a relationship from here. And we found each other a year ago. So it was during COVID, and I had already written the script of That Ghost Kingdom, and had already been in rehearsals. But that's where I am now, everybody.
So will you be writing a third script?
I'm going to frighten Rick right now. Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm living it right now. And if anything artistic comes out of it, certainly. I think it's always good to examine that journey, and I mean, that's what art is for. Is we're trying to understand ourselves and the events around us, and so if it happens, yeah, sure, it may happen.
Yeah,
but I will be here at Mammoth Lakes Rep to perform that.
You might have to come and do this live when we're really going strong. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you talk about how you're doing the relationship now, because I think a lot of people, first of all, we're very lucky, both you and I, that we had a good outcome to our story, because there's a lot of adoptive kids that do not have that great storybook ending where everyone's great. And I've had friends that they do not keep in touch with their birth family at all. But even in the journey, it's very hard to navigate, because with family, there's certain liberties you can take. These people are our family, but they're perfect strangers. And so it's navigating what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. I mean, there's no guidebook for that, and it's just experiencing it and figuring it out as you go. And hopefully everyone's really healthy emotionally, that you can go through this journey together and have a great outcome. And it's just it's a really wild ride.
It is a wild ride. It's highly complicated, and everybody, I mean, I've heard so many stories ever since I started performing blank, within the adoption and foster community, that my jaw never ceases to hit the ground. I mean, but it's that's why I didn't go back and change the ending when I found my father, because it's more realistic to where we don't always find what we are looking for, what we think we're looking for. And we still, no matter what we find or what we don't find, we have to find a strength within ourselves to be able to move forward with, for just the decision alone to go on the journey to search is just an act of us taking the power in our own hands. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? We're kind of empowering ourselves to make a decision to, find the truth of ourselves. And and sometimes that just has to be enough. Sometimes that, and it's tough and it's painful. And I mean, you saw the anxiety in the movie that I wanted to portray about it. But again, we don't always find things, and we don't always find what we think we're looking for, but we have to find the strength within to move forward and feel good about what we're doing, and the fact that we decided to search, because it is our right to do that.
Yeah, it's, you know, I grapple with that because my birth mother never told her husband that she had
I
that
know.
she had a child, never told her son. And really, like I said, there's only 5 people on her side of the family that knew I existed. Well, obviously, no, anywhere, because she told the boy who impregnated her, my birth father, she told him that she had an abortion. So I'm keeping myself out there to find my birth brother on her side, but I do have, dual feelings about that. I do think it is my right to know, her medical history and things like that. But then it's like I don't want to ruin her life. So there's so many things that go into this that people have
Hmm.
no clue. It's really
I
complicated.
know. It's very complicated.
Yeah,
And it's a scary thing to decide to search. It's scary,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah. Because you never know what you're going to find. Yeah,
No, yeah.
yeah.
And you never know what you're going to feel.
Right. No, that's true. Well, on that note, I want to again thank you for your bravery and your vulnerability. And uh, let's see, all her lies ruined her life, not you. Oh, that's very
Yeah.
sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So again, thank you so much. This is an amazing show, and hopefully, when things get back, maybe we can. And you've got it all together. We can bring it to the theater live. I would love to see this live in person.
Got a lot to figure out. That'd be cool. Either way, I can't wait. I'd love to be back on stage up in Mammoth. And I want to ski again. Oh my gosh.
There you go. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and
Thank
please
you.
keep supporting theater in Mammoth Lakes. We're hoping to find a pop-up venue that we can do some live events and then go back to being outside in the summer, and just get vaccinated and stay safe and healthy. And thank you so much. Everyone take care.
Thanks for all you're doing, Shira. You guys are amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.